The man at the dealership looked at me like I was the one wasting his time. "Ma'am, the paperwork is already in process," he said, tapping a stack of documents on his desk. "If you have an issue, you'll need to take it up with the seller." "I am the owner," I said. He paused. Actually paused. Like something in his brain had to catch up. Because sitting right in front of him was the original title with my name on it. Not my brother's. Not my parents'. Mine. And yet somehow, my car was already halfway sold. My name is Rachel, and I'm 31 years old. Before I tell you how my own family tried to sell something that legally belonged to me, if you connect with stories like this or real, raw, and sometimes uncomfortable, consider subscribing. Only if you genuinely feel these stories matter. Because I didn't realize what was happening until I walked into that dealership and saw my car parked out front, with a price tag on it. I wasn't even supposed to be there that day. I had taken a half day off work because my manager pushed a meeting. I work in operations for a logistics company, so my schedule is usually tight. But that afternoon opened up unexpectedly. And something small, almost insignificant, made me change my route home. A notification. From my insurance app. Vehicle activity update. At first, I thought it was routine. Maybe a system refresh. Maybe a policy reminder. But when I opened it, it showed a pending ownership verification request. I frowned. Ownership verification? For what? I only had one vehicle. A 2018 Honda Civic. Paid off. Registered under my name. I had bought it 3 years ago after saving for almost 5 years. Every overtime shift. Every bonus. Every small sacrifice. That car wasn't just transportation. It was independence. And now there was a pending ownership check tied to it. I tried calling the insurance company. Long wait. Automated responses. No clear answers. So I did the next logical thing. I opened the app and checked the details. There was a dealership name attached to the request. About 20 minutes from where I was. That's how I ended up there. Standing in a showroom that smelled like polished floors and new leather. Looking at my car through a glass window. Cleaned. Detailed. A small tag hanging from the rearview mirror. $14,900. For a second, I thought maybe I was mistaken. Maybe it just looked like mine. But then I saw the small scratch near the back bumper. The one from when someone hit me in a parking lot and drove off. Same spot. Same shape. Same car. My car. I walked straight inside. Didn't hesitate. Didn't overthink. I went to the front desk. "Hi," I said. "That silver Civic outside, who's handling that sale?" The receptionist smiled politely. "Let me check for you." A few seconds later, she directed me to the man sitting across from me now. And that's how I ended up here. Arguing with someone who clearly thought I was confused. "Look," he said, flipping through papers, "the seller provided documentation and identification. Everything checks out. Whose name is on the title?" I asked. He hesitated. "Your brother's," he said. I felt something inside me go completely still. My brother doesn't own that car. That's not what the documents say. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder I always kept. Call it habit. Call it paranoia. But I kept copies of everything important. Insurance. Registration. Title. I placed the title in front of him. "This is the legal owner," I said. He looked at it. Then back at me. Then back at it again. The shift in his expression was immediate. Subtle. But real. "Give me a moment," he said, standing up. He walked into the back office. I sat there, heart steady but heavy. Because now it wasn't confusion anymore. It was confirmation. Someone had tried to sell my car. And used my brother's name to do it. A few minutes later, the man came back. His tone was different now. More careful. Can you explain how your brother came into possession of the vehicle? I let out a small breath. That's what I'm trying to figure out. But deep down, I already had a feeling. Because this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Not exactly like this. But close enough. Growing up, my brother Jason was always different in my parents' eyes. Not bad. Not irresponsible. Just prioritized. He was 2 years younger than me. But somehow, everything revolved around him. His needs. His plans. His mistakes. When he dropped out of college, my parents supported him. It's not for everyone, they said. When I worked 2 jobs to pay my tuition, they called me independent. When he crashed his first car, they helped him replace it. When I saved for years to buy mine, they said, that's what responsibility looks like. I used to think that was a compliment. Now I realize. It was an expectation. Jason didn't have to earn things the way I did. He just received them. And apparently, now, he thought he could take them too. I pulled out my phone and called him. He picked up on the 3rd ring. Hey, what's up? His voice was casual. Normal. Like nothing was wrong. Where are you? I asked. At home. Why? I'm at a dealership, I said. Silence. Then. Okay. My car is here, I continued. More silence. Longer this time. Rachel. Why is my car being sold under your name? Another pause. Then he exhaled. It's not a big deal. I almost laughed. Not a big deal. I was going to tell you. When? Soon. I closed my eyes for a second. Because that word, soon, was always his shield. Something vague enough to avoid accountability. You forged ownership documents, I said. I didn't forge anything, he replied quickly. Dad helped with the paperwork. That hit harder than anything else. Dad, helped you? Yeah, he said, like it was obvious. It's just temporary. I needed cash. Temporary. That word again. Everything was temporary when it came to taking from me. Did you ask me? I said. He didn't answer. Because he didn't need to. The answer was already clear. I'll call you later, I said, and hung up. I sat there for a moment, phone still in my hand. Then I looked up as the dealership manager returned. We've halted the transaction, he said. Good, I replied. But we'll need to investigate further. There are legal implications here. I'm aware, I said. And for the first time since walking in, I felt something shift. Not panic. Not anger. Clarity. Because this wasn't just about my brother. This involved my parents. Again. And if there was one thing I had learned over the years, it's that when they said, it's not a big deal, it usually meant it was. I didn't go home right away after leaving the dealership. Instead, I sat in my car across the street, watching through the glass as one of the employees walked out and quietly removed the price tag from my windshield. It should have felt like a win. But it didn't. Because the problem wasn't the sale. The problem was how easily it almost happened. How confidently someone had walked into a dealership, handed over documents, and convinced them that my car belonged to him. And what bothered me more than anything was that my brother hadn't sounded nervous. He hadn't sounded like someone who got caught. He sounded like someone who thought this would blow over. Like it always had. I looked down at my phone again. No new messages. No apology. No explanation. Just silence. I started the car and drove straight to my parents' house. I didn't call ahead. Didn't text. I wanted to see their reaction without warning. Because reactions tell you more than words ever will. When I pulled into the driveway, my dad's truck was there. So was my mom's car. And Jason's. Of course. I walked up to the front door and let myself in. No one locked doors in that house. Not from outsiders. And apparently not from each other either. My mom was in the kitchen. She looked up and smiled. Rachel. I didn't know you were coming. Where's Dad? I asked. Her smile faltered just slightly. In the living room. I nodded and walked past her without another word. My dad was sitting on the couch, watching TV like it was any other day. Like nothing had happened. Jason was there too. Scrolling through his phone. Relaxed. Comfortable. Like he hadn't just tried to sell something that wasn't his. They both looked up when I walked in. Hey, Jason said casually. I didn't respond to him. I looked straight at my dad. Did you help him sell my car? No build-up. No soft entry. Just the truth. My dad muted the TV. Set the remote down. And sighed. Like I had interrupted something minor. Rachel, sit down, he said. No, I replied. His jaw tightened. It's not what you think. I let out a short breath. Then explain it. Jason shifted slightly. Look, I already told you. I'm not talking to you, I said, not even looking at him. That landed. Hard. Because for once, I wasn't engaging with his version of things. I was going straight to the source. My dad leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. He needed help, he said. I stared at him. So you decided to sell my car? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? My mom walked in at that point. She stood near the doorway, watching. Not interrupting. Not defending. Just observing. Like she always did when things got uncomfortable. My dad ran a hand over his face. We were going to handle it, he said. There's that word again, I replied. Handle. Jason stood up. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. I finally looked at him. And for the first time, there was no hesitation in my voice. You committed fraud. Silence. He scoffed slightly. Relax. Relax. I actually felt something cold settle in my chest at that. Because that word told me everything. He didn't get it. Not even now. This isn't about you needing money, I said. This is about you thinking you're allowed to take something that belongs to me. I was going to pay you back, he said quickly. With what? I asked. He didn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. He didn't have a plan. He had a moment. And he acted on it. Like he always did. My dad stood up slowly. Enough, he said. I looked at him. No, I said calmly. Not enough. He frowned. You're overreacting. That word. Overreacting. I almost smiled. Because it was so predictable. So let me get this straight, I said. You helped him create documents to transfer ownership of my car. We didn't transfer ownership, he interrupted. You tried to, I corrected. And you took it to a dealership to sell it. He didn't respond. Because there was nothing to deny. It had already happened. I have the title, I said. In my name. That doesn't matter, Jason muttered. That sentence. That was the moment something shifted completely. Because it wasn't just disrespect. It was entitlement. Clear. Unfiltered. Dangerous. It doesn't matter? I repeated. It's just paperwork, he said. We were going to fix it. Fix it. Just like everything else. Temporary. Fixable. Not a big deal. I took a slow breath. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. Opened the photos I had taken at the dealership. The listing. The price. The paperwork. I held it out toward them. This is what almost happened today. My mom stepped closer. Her eyes widened as she looked at the screen. You listed it already? Jason didn't answer. My dad's expression darkened slightly. We told you, it wasn't finalized. It was far enough, I said. I lowered the phone. And if I hadn't walked in when I did? Silence. No one answered. Because they all knew. The sale would have gone through. My car would have been gone. And I would have found out after the fact. Like always. After. When it's too late. I looked at my mom. Did you know? She hesitated. That hesitation. That was the answer. I knew he needed help, she said softly. I nodded. Of course she did. She always knew just enough to stay out of direct responsibility. But never enough to stop anything. I straightened slightly. And my voice changed. Not louder. Not emotional. Just firmer. This stops now. My dad frowned. What does that mean? It means, I said, you don't touch anything that belongs to me again. Jason rolled his eyes. You're acting like we stole something. I looked at him. You tried to. Silence again. Then I added. And I've already reported it. That landed. Harder than anything else. My dad's expression snapped. You did what? I contacted the dealership, I said. And I'm filing a report with the DMV. Jason stared at me. You're serious? I held his gaze. For the first time in your life, you should assume I am. My mom stepped forward. Rachel, don't do this. Don't do what? I asked. Protect what's mine? My dad's voice dropped. You're going to get your own family in trouble. I met his eyes. You already did that. The room felt different now. Not tense. Not emotional. Just exposed. Because the truth was out. Clear. Undeniable. And for the first time. I wasn't the one backing down. I picked up my bag. Then paused at the door. You have no idea how close you came to actually losing something that mattered to me, I said. Then I looked at Jason one last time. And next time. I won't be this calm. I walked out without waiting for a response. And this time. No one followed me. Because deep down. They knew this wasn't something they could just smooth over. Not anymore. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was upset. But because my mind wouldn't stop organizing everything. Every conversation. Every reaction. Every small detail that didn't sit right. When something like this happens, you start replaying moments differently. Things that once felt normal suddenly feel intentional. Calculated. I kept thinking about one thing Jason said. That doesn't matter. About the title. About ownership. About something that was legally mine. He didn't say it like he was wrong. He said it like he believed it. And that belief didn't come from nowhere. It came from years of being protected. Excused. Backed up. By the same two people who stood in that living room acting like I was overreacting. By morning, I wasn't tired. I was clear. I got up early, made coffee, and opened my laptop. The first thing I did was log into my state's DMV portal. Not because I didn't trust what I already had. But because I needed everything documented. Verified. Time-stamped. My car was still registered under my name. No pending transfer had gone through. Which meant one thing. They didn't get far enough to complete it. But they got far enough to try. And that mattered. I downloaded the full registration record. Saved it. Then I opened a new document. Started building a timeline. Purchase date. Loan payoff. Insurance history. Then yesterday. Dealership visit. Attempted sale. Phone call with Jason. Conversation at my parents' house. I wrote everything down. Not emotionally. Not dramatically. Just facts. Because facts are what hold up when everything else falls apart. Around 9 a.m., my phone rang. Jason. I let it ring. Then it stopped. A minute later, my mom called. I didn't answer that either. Then a text came through. Can we talk? I stared at it for a second. Then put my phone face down. Because I already knew what that conversation would sound like. Minimizing. Explaining. Reframing. Turning something serious into something manageable. And I wasn't interested in that anymore. By 10:30, I was at the DMV office. I could have handled most of it online. But this wasn't something I wanted processed quietly in the background. I wanted a record. A conversation. A human acknowledgement that something had been attempted. The woman at the counter was calm. Professional. Used to dealing with complicated situations. How can I help you today? She asked. I placed my documents on the counter. My vehicle was nearly sold yesterday without my authorization, I said. I need to make sure there are no active or pending transfers under my name. She looked up at me. Then down at the paperwork. Then back at me again. Do you suspect fraudulent activity? Yes. She nodded. All right. Let's take a look. She typed for a few minutes. Checked multiple screens. Then turned the monitor slightly toward me. There's no completed transfer, she said. But. That word. But. There was an inquiry initiated yesterday, she continued. I leaned in slightly. From a dealership? Yes. And the name attached? She clicked something. Then paused. It lists a secondary claimant attempt under Jason Mitchell. My brother. There it was. Official. Recorded. Not just something I said. Something that existed in a system. Can that happen without my consent? I asked. Not legally, she said. Simple. Direct. Exactly what I needed. I'd like to flag the vehicle, I said. She nodded. I can place a protective notice on the registration. It prevents any transfer without direct in-person verification from you. Do that. She typed again. A few more clicks. Done. I let out a slow breath. Because that one step closed the door they tried to open. Then she looked at me again. If you believe someone attempted to transfer ownership without authorization, you may want to file a formal report. I plan to, I said. She nodded. Good. Documentation helps. I almost smiled. Because that was exactly what I had been doing. Building documentation. Layer by layer. I left the DMV with copies of everything. Stamped. Filed. Real. By the time I got back to my car, my phone had 3 more missed calls. 2 from my mom. 1 from my dad. And a message from Jason. You're blowing this out of proportion. I read it once. Then again. Then I locked my phone. Because that sentence told me everything I needed to know. Still no accountability. Still no understanding. Still no shift. Which meant I was doing the right thing. I drove straight to work after that. Tried to focus. Tried to stay in routine. But around lunchtime, my manager stopped by my desk. "Hey, quick question," she said. "Are you expecting someone?" I looked up. "No, why?" "There's a guy at reception asking for you." My stomach didn't drop. It didn't twist. It just settled. Because I already knew who it was. "I'll be right there," I said. When I walked into the lobby, Jason was standing near the front desk. Hands in his pockets. Looking annoyed more than anything else. Like this was an inconvenience. Not a consequence. "Really," he said the second he saw me. "Work?" I crossed my arms. "You came here." I tried calling. I didn't answer.
Yeah,
I noticed. There was a brief silence. Then he stepped closer. "You filed something?" I held his gaze. I protected what's mine. He shook his head. "This is insane." "No," I said calmly. "This is new." That seemed to throw him off. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not ignoring things anymore." He exhaled sharply. "You could have just talked to me." I almost laughed. "I did," I said. "At the dealership. At the house. You told me to relax." He didn't respond. Because again. There was nothing to say. "You're making this legal," he said finally. I nodded slightly. "You made it legal the moment you tried to change ownership." Silence. Then he leaned in just a little. "Do you really want to go this far?" I didn't step back. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't hesitate. Yes. That one word landed heavier than anything else. Because it wasn't emotional. It wasn't reactive. It was decided. He stared at me for a second. Trying to figure out if I meant it. Trying to find some version of me that would back down. But that version was gone. Finally, he shook his head. Unbelievable. Then he turned and walked out. Just like that. No apology. No accountability. Just frustration that things didn't go his way. I stood there for a moment. Then turned and walked back to my desk. And for the first time since all of this started, I felt something settle. Not relief. Not satisfaction. Just certainty. Because now everything was in motion. Not emotionally. Not verbally. But officially. And once things reach that point, there's no going back to pretending it didn't happen.